Unaware he knew, Savannah Cole secretly sold her husband's $2 million luxury ranch for $5 to her lover. But the day she signed those papers, she had no idea the man she thought was blind in love had already seen everything. Jackson Cole wasn't just a husband, he was the quiet architect of every acre she betrayed, the kind of man who built empires with his hands and trusted too deeply with his heart. To Savannah, his kindness looked like weakness. To him, her beauty had become a mask hiding rot. But why would a woman trade a $2 million life for $5? What kind of lover risks everything for stolen land? And what could a husband possibly do when he finds out the wife he cherished sold his world for the price of a cup of coffee, unaware he already knew? The morning sun rolled over the Texas hills, turning Jackson Cole's $2 million ranch into a field of gold. Horses grazed by the white fences he'd painted himself, and the air smelled of cedar and honesty. Jackson believed in both. He stood on the porch in his denim shirt, mug in hand, watching his wife through the kitchen window. Savannah Cole moved like a dream wrapped in silk and perfume, her laughter filling the space where his silence usually lived. To him, she was still the woman he'd met 8 years ago, stranded on the highway outside Dallas, with a broken heel and broken dreams. He'd fixed her tire and bought her dinner, never realizing he was also fixing a loneliness that had lived inside him since boyhood. To her, he was safety. And safety, to Savannah, always got boring. "Babe, the accountant's coming by for signatures," she called. "Tax stuff." Jackson nodded, wiping sweat from his brow. "Leave it on the desk. I'll take a look." She smiled too quickly, eyes shifting away. That was the first retention wall, his first subconscious signal that something behind that smile wasn't home anymore. Savannah's mother, Vivian Price, had told her over brunch weeks earlier, "The woman's beauty is her currency. Don't waste it in the wrong bank." And Savannah believed her. Jackson's kindness was steady, but steadiness didn't trend on social media. At night she scrolled through the glossy lives of influencers, wives of billionaires, women flying to Capri for business retreats. Each post deepened the quiet resentment inside her. Meanwhile, Jackson had been planning a surprise anniversary gift, the deed to half the ranch in her name. He'd built this land from nothing, nights welding fences, days cutting deals with oil barons who once laughed at his secondhand suits. But he wanted her to feel ownership, to feel trusted. He didn't know she already had a buyer. The buyer's name was Dylan Grant, his business partner, his closest friend. Dylan, the man who toasted Jackson's wedding saying, "If love had a face, it'd be you two." Dylan, who now texted Savannah late nights under the name Brand Consultant. When Jackson kissed Savannah's forehead that night, she stiffened. He noticed, said nothing. He'd learned from his father, Earl Cole, that confrontation too early ruins the truth. Earl once accused Jackson's mother of cheating without proof. She left, and the accusation became prophecy. So Jackson waited, watched, loved quietly. But the same kindness that once built his empire was about to build his downfall. In bed, Savannah whispered, "Promise me we'll never lose this life." He smiled in the dark. "I built it so you'd never have to worry." And she turned away, hiding a text that had just flashed on her phone. "Dylan, tomorrow we finalize it, $5, and it's ours." The horses neighed outside as if warning him, but Jackson only pulled her closer. He didn't know she was already selling the land beneath his arms. The next morning arrived dressed in silence. Savannah stood before the mirror, curling her hair, her reflection calm but her pulse loud. The diamond on her finger glimmered as she texted Dylan under the table. "Dylan, no one will know. Paul's got the papers ready. Just sign and walk away smiling. Savannah, and if he asks?" "Dylan, he won't. Jackson trusts you too much." Trust, the very word that built her husband's empire, was the same one she was about to weaponize. Jackson walked in, buttoning his cufflinks, holding the same thermos he'd used for years. "You look beautiful this morning," he said softly. "Thanks," she replied, lips tight. He leaned in to kiss her cheek, but she turned slightly. The small movement split the air between them like a blade. "Busy day?" he asked. "Just meetings. Content partnerships." She lied. He nodded, pretending to believe her. Pretending was something he'd quietly mastered over the last few weeks. He'd already noticed the extra withdrawals from their joint account, the new perfume that wasn't from him, the calls that ended as soon as he entered the room. And last night, when she slept, he'd opened her tablet. A document sat in the drafts folder, transfer of deed Cole Ranch. He read every word, every forged signature, every lie. But instead of rage, he felt something colder. Control. At noon, Savannah met Dylan and Paul Rivers, the accountant, in a small real estate office in downtown Dallas. "Sign here," Paul said nervously, pushing the papers forward. His hands shook. Savannah hesitated. "It's just paperwork," Dylan whispered, touching her hand. "In a few days, it's officially ours. No more hiding." Her heart pounded. She looked at Dylan, the man she'd traded everything for, and signed. $5. That's all it took to erase 8 years of loyalty. Across town, Jackson was in his truck, parked quietly outside the office, watching through tinted windows. Cal Bennett, his private investigator, sat beside him, camera lens steady. "You sure you want to see this, Mr. Cole?" Cal asked. "I've been seeing it for months," Jackson said quietly. "Now I just need proof." The camera clicked. One flash froze her betrayal forever. Later that evening, Savannah came home humming like nothing had happened. Jackson was on the porch again, wiping oil from his hands, his calmness almost frightening in its stillness. "How was your day?" he asked. "Long meetings," she said. "You?" "Productive," he replied, smiling faintly. "Closed a few deals." Inside, the dinner table looked perfect. 2 plates, candles, wine. He poured her a glass, his movements slow, deliberate. "You ever think how trust is like a ranch fence?" he said. "One loose nail and the whole thing can fall apart." She laughed nervously. "You and your metaphors." He looked at her, eyes steady. "Yeah, I just hope ours holds." That night, while Savannah slept peacefully, Jackson sat alone in the study, scrolling through DNA results Cal had sent him. His hands trembled as he read, "Liam Cole, 0% paternal match. Maya Cole, 0% paternal match." He didn't scream. He didn't cry. He simply whispered, "Unaware I knew." The clock ticked past midnight as the quiet man she thought she fooled began building the kind of revenge that would echo louder than betrayal itself. Savannah woke to the smell of breakfast eggs, bacon, coffee, brewed just the way she liked it. Jackson stood at the counter, sleeves rolled up, humming an old country tune. He looked calm, too calm. "Morning, beautiful," he said with a warm smile. "You've been working so hard lately. Thought I'd surprise you." The kindness disarmed her. Guilt flickered for a second before vanity crushed it. "You didn't have to," she said softly, brushing her hair back. Jackson placed the plate in front of her, his hands steady, his tone smooth. "I wanted to. You deserve the world, Savannah." The line lingered. It wasn't flattery, it was foreshadowing. She didn't know the world he was about to give her was one made of mirrors, each reflection waiting to destroy her illusion. When she left for her content shoot, Jackson called Cal. "Stage 1, he said simply. "Understood," Cal replied. "You want him followed or baited?" "Both." By noon, Dylan received an anonymous invitation to a new real estate investment opportunity from a private holding company. The deal seemed golden, a ranch development promising triple returns. What Dylan didn't know was that Jackson had built the company under a false name, using proxies and lawyers hidden behind walls of trusts. At 3 p.m., Savannah posted a picture of herself and Dylan at a restaurant on her secret account. Jackson saw it. He didn't react. He simply saved the photo. Meanwhile, Cal tailed Dylan to his office. Inside, Dylan boasted to his assistant, "We'll flip the ranch, sell to foreign investors, and be sitting on millions. Savannah's husband won't even know until it's gone." The camera caught every word, every smug smile. That night, Jackson returned home with flowers. "For you?" he said. Savannah blinked. "For what?" "For trusting me all these years." The words hit her like a chill. "Of course I trust you," she said quickly. He smiled, but his eyes didn't. "Good. Trust keeps love alive." When she went upstairs to shower, Jackson opened the family safe. He replaced their deed papers with duplicates of forged copies she'd already signed exactly as she left them, untouched. He then slid the real originals into a sealed envelope marked confidential, attorney-client privilege. In his study, he poured whiskey, staring at his late father's photo. "You were right, Dad," he whispered. Kindness without boundaries invites betrayal. But I'm not you. I don't break, I rebuild. Cal called minutes later. Got his voice on record. He bragged about owning your ranch. Do you want the footage leaked? Not yet, Jackson said. Let him think he's winning. That's when people show their real greed. At midnight, Savannah texted Dylan. Savannah, he's acting normal. I think we're safe. Dylan. Then soon, we'll celebrate on that ranch lawn, our name on every acre. But across town, Jackson watched a live feed from Cal's hidden camera in Dylan's office. He saw the documents on Dylan's desk, the ones Savannah thought were still secret, and he smiled a slow, dangerous smile that could shatter glass. Celebrate all you want, he murmured, because by the time you toast your first glass, you'll be toasting your own downfall. Outside, thunder rolled across the hills as if nature itself was warning them both. Savannah thought she was living in a story about freedom. Jackson was writing one about reckoning. The next morning, the sky was soft and silver, but something about the air felt heavy, like a calm before a storm that only Jackson could hear coming. He stood by the fence, stroking his horse's mane, while his mind sharpened every detail of the plan he'd already set in motion. Savannah appeared in her robe, phone in hand, half smiling. Morning, baby, she said. Morning, Jackson replied, voice quiet, deliberate. You sleep well? Like a queen, he smirked faintly. Good. Queens should rest well before the crown tilts. She frowned, unsure if it was a joke. He kissed her forehead gently, then added, Don't wait up tonight. I've got meetings in the city. By noon, Jackson walked into the sleek glass tower of Cole Grant Holdings, the very company he'd co-founded with Dylan years ago. Everyone in the lobby still saw him as the calm, wealthy partner. No one knew he had already built a mirror company under Elena Morris's name, his lawyer and longtime friend, to buy back every asset Dylan was quietly stealing. Elena met him in the boardroom. I've reviewed everything, she said. He's used Savannah's signature on 6 forged transfers. Good, Jackson replied coldly. Let him keep digging. When he hits the bottom, I'll pour the concrete. They shared a look, a history of old loyalty and quiet understanding. Elena had loved him once, but she loved justice more. Meanwhile, Savannah met Dylan at a luxury hotel suite. She wore gold and gilt, wrapped in perfume and deceit. He doesn't suspect a thing, she whispered, sliding into his arms. Dylan grinned. Then it's time to start liquidating. The new buyers are waiting. Are you sure it's safe? He kissed her neck. You trust me, don't you? She hesitated, then nodded. Trust the word that had destroyed better people than both of them. Across town, Cal Bennett uploaded hidden camera footage to an encrypted drive. Every word Dylan said, every signature Savannah made, was time-stamped, logged, and stored. Jackson didn't just want justice, he wanted evidence that could make forgiveness impossible. That night, Jackson returned home with a calmness that was almost cruel. Savannah was by the pool, scrolling through her phone, pretending to read messages from brand partners. You ever think about what we'd be if we lost all this? Jackson asked, sitting beside her. She laughed lightly. Lose it? You've built everything too strong for that. He nodded slowly. Strong things fall too, Savannah. Sometimes they just take longer. Her smile faltered. Are you okay? He looked at her, eyes unreadable. Never better. Just thinking about ownership, how it changes hands so easily. That night, when she slept, he stood over her for a long time. Not in anger, just silence. The kind of silence that comes before storms, verdicts, and funerals. He whispered to himself, she thinks she's playing a game. But the board, the rules, and the clock all belong to me. Miles away, Dylan toasted champagne in his penthouse, unaware the land he believed he owned had already been legally transferred to Elena Holdings Trust, acting under Jackson's secret authority. The $5 ranch sale was now a trap, a crime sealed with his own signature. By morning, a new email would arrive in Dylan's inbox. It would read, You're invited to the next investment round. Bring your partner. Savannah would insist on going, and Jackson would be waiting on the other side of that door with the truth dressed as kindness, and the beginning of their collapse waiting in a single handshake. The day of the investment meeting arrived dressed in elegance and deceit. The venue was a downtown Dallas penthouse suite, glass walls, soft jazz, expensive champagne on silver trays. Savannah loved it immediately. It looked like the world she always believed she deserved. Jackson stood near the floor-to-ceiling window, flawless in a navy suit, his calm presence commanding without words. He turned as they entered Savannah in a white dress that whispered arrogance, Dylan in a tailored jacket and counterfeit confidence. "Mr. Grant," Jackson greeted warmly, extending his hand. "Good to see you again." Dylan's grin faltered. "Jackson, didn't expect, thought you were in Austin today." "Plans changed," Jackson said smoothly. "When there's talk of big money, I show up." Savannah's pulse quickened. She glanced at Dylan, silently asking if he'd slipped up. He gave her a quick nod, a fake reassurance. Elena approached, professional and composed. "Welcome, everyone. Thank you for attending this exclusive investor preview for Elena Holdings Trust." She gestured toward framed architectural renderings, the Cole Ranch redevelopment project. Savannah froze. Dylan coughed, nearly spilling his drink. "Did you say Cole Ranch?" he asked. "Yes," Elena replied casually. "A $2 million property just acquired for a token sum. An exciting story. Really one about ambition, trust, and ownership." The words cut like blades. Jackson smiled faintly. "You see, I heard rumors someone sold that ranch for $5. Sounds insane, right? Who would sell something priceless for pocket change?" Savannah tried to laugh. "Probably someone desperate or someone greedy," Jackson replied. "But you'd have to be foolish to think such a sale could stand in court, especially if that property was co-owned and one of the signatories lacked full authorization." Dylan's face went pale. He set his glass down. "What's this about, Jackson?" "Business," Jackson said calmly. "Yours, mine, and hers." Elena opened a folder and slid several photographs across the table. "Is this your signature, Mr. Grant? And yours, Mrs. Cole?" Savannah's voice trembled. "Where did you get those?" "From the notary who filed your paperwork," Elena said evenly. "Interesting woman," she said. "You looked very much in love that day." Jackson stepped closer, his tone still calm, but now carrying thunder beneath the words. "You forged my signature, Savannah. You conspired with him to defraud me. But I didn't stop you. I wanted to see how far two people could go before guilt became gravity." Silence filled the room. Even the jazz stopped. "You think you can humiliate us?" Dylan snapped. "You have no proof this sale was illegal." Jackson's eyes never blinked. "Proof?" He nodded to Cal, who entered with a briefcase and a projector. A video flickered on the wall footage of Dylan boasting in his office. "We'll flip the ranch, sell to foreign investors, and be sitting on millions." Savannah gasped, clutching her chest. "You recorded him?" Jackson's voice was cold steel. "I recorded everything." The investors, who were actually attorneys, journalists, and real estate officials invited by Jackson, sat frozen. Phones recorded, cameras captured. By the time the video ended, Dylan's career was ashes and Savannah's world was burning. Jackson turned to them both. "You stole my land for $5, but tonight, I took your freedom for free." He walked away calmly as cameras flashed, leaving behind a wife who suddenly realized her beauty couldn't bargain with truth, and a lover who finally saw what it meant to steal from a man who'd already prepared your punishment before you sinned. Outside, thunder rolled again. Jackson looked up at the dark sky and whispered, "That's one." 2 days later, the internet detonated. Clips from the investment meeting were everywhere, headlines screaming across TikTok, YouTube, and financial news. Influencer Savannah Cole, caught in $2M ranch fraud scandal. Real estate partner Dylan Grant under investigation for forgery and tax fraud. The video had been leaked anonymously, but everyone who knew Jackson recognized his quiet signature behind it. He didn't need to speak publicly. The footage did it for him. At the ranch, Savannah sat on the kitchen floor, phone in hand, watching her own downfall play on repeat. Her makeup was smeared, her robe wrinkled, her composure gone. "Please, Jackson, you can fix this," she begged when he walked in, calm as a sermon. "Fix?" His tone was soft but surgical. "You mean lie?" Her tears came fast. "You're destroying me!" He knelt beside her, eyes level. "No, Savannah, you destroyed yourself the moment you put a price tag on loyalty. I'm just collecting the receipts." She sobbed harder, clinging to his arm. He gently pulled free. "Don't cry for sympathy. Save it for the mirror." That night, As Savannah's sponsors dropped her and followers vanished by the thousands, Dylan's company went dark. Federal agents raided his office. Cal had already sent the files to the IRS, and the trap Jackson built from kindness was snapping shut one hinge at a time. Dylan called her from a burner phone, his voice shaking. "You leaked it, didn't you?" She screamed back. "You said it was safe." "Nothing's safe now," he growled. "He's 2 steps ahead of everything. Every call, every transfer he knew." Then the line went dead. Across town, Jackson sat in his truck outside the elementary school. He watched as Liam and Maya ran to his car, lunchboxes swinging. For a moment, the ache in his chest softened, but then he remembered the DNA results burning in his pocket like a truth he could never unlearn. "Daddy, can we go for ice cream?" Maya asked. He forced a smile. "Not today, sweetheart. Maybe another time." Later that night, he stared at their baby photos, tracing their faces with trembling hands. The resemblance to Dylan was now undeniable, the same jawline, the same smirk. He picked up the phone and called Elena. "I need to file for legal custody termination," he said quietly. Elena hesitated. "Are you sure? They're innocent in all this." "No," he whispered. "They're the only innocent ones. That's why I have to let them go before this world poisons them too." When Savannah found the court papers the next morning, she collapsed to the floor. "You're disowning them?" she cried. "They're your children." Jackson looked at her with a sadness too deep for rage. "No, Savannah. They're his." "You made sure of that." Her scream echoed through the ranch, bouncing off the walls of the life she'd just sold for $5. That evening, reporters camped outside their gate. She begged Jackson to say something to defend her publicly, to call it a misunderstanding. He walked past her without a word, placed his cowboy hat on, and drove off in silence. Inside the house, her reflection caught her eye in the glass door. She looked older, now smaller. The mansion that once felt like a dream now looked like a museum of mistakes. Somewhere out there, Jackson was already writing the next chapter not with words, but with precision, because his revenge wasn't just about property. It was about identity, reputation, legacy. She'd taken his piece. Now, he was going to take her name. The storm had passed over Dallas that morning, but in Jackson's world, the real thunder was only beginning. He sat in a marble-lined courthouse hallway, clean-cut, calm, a man who'd already rehearsed every possible outcome. Beside him, Elena adjusted her glasses and opened a folder thick enough to bury a life. Inside were certified bank records, tax returns, wire transfers, and forged filings, every secret Savannah and Dylan thought they'd buried. "She doesn't know what's coming," Elena said quietly. "She will," Jackson replied, tone even. By noon, down the corridor, Savannah stood near the water cooler trying to hide her trembling. Her designer dress couldn't cover the fear in her eyes. Dylan waited behind her, jaw tight, sweat glistening at his temple. "He can't win everything," Dylan whispered. Savannah forced a shaky smile. "He's just trying to scare us." At exactly 10 a.m., the clerk opened the courtroom door. Cole versus Cole and Grant. Inside, Judge Claire Walters presided, the same judge who'd once known Jackson's father. She peered over her glasses at the three of them. "I've seen love in many ways," she said dryly. "Let's see how greed ends." Elena rose first. "Your Honor, this isn't a divorce. It's a reclamation. The defendants sold Mr. Cole's $2 million ranch for $5. They forged his signature, they used his marital trust, and they claimed joint tax benefits while committing fraud." The room buzzed. Cameras clicked. Savannah's lawyer tried to object, but Jackson lifted a single document. Exhibit A, notarized proof of unauthorized sale. Then came Exhibit B, bank statements showing Dylan's deposits from offshore accounts. And finally Exhibit C, video footage of the hotel meeting where Savannah whispered, "He doesn't suspect a thing." Each clip was a blow. Savannah's breathing grew shallow. Dylan's fists clenched. When Elena called Cal to the stand, he testified how he'd traced the shell companies all owned by Dylan under false IDs. He handed the judge a USB drive. "Everything's on there, Your Honor. Wire transfers, timestamps, and conversations." Judge Walters leaned back, unimpressed but firm. "Mr. Grant, anything to say?" Dylan's voice cracked. "This is a setup," he planted. "Enough," the judge snapped. "Every thief says the same thing before the evidence speaks louder." Savannah finally stood. "Your Honor, I didn't know. Jackson's voice cut through. Don't lie here too. She turned toward him, tears flooding. I loved you. He met her gaze, steady and empty. Then you should have protected what you loved. The judge ruled swiftly. The ranch sale was voided. Property restored entirely to Jackson. Dylan was fined for tax fraud and perjury. Savannah faced a civil judgment that stripped her of marital rights and public credibility. But Jackson wasn't finished. As reporters swarmed the courthouse steps, he pulled Elena aside. Now buy the rest. The rest? He nodded. Dylan's debts, Savannah's liens, the loan on her mother's house. Quietly, through the trust. Within a week, he owned everything they'd ever touched. Vivian Price, Savannah's mother, woke one morning to find foreclosure papers on her doorstep issued by Elena Holdings Trust. Her name, her daughter's home, even Dylan's penthouse, all legally under Jackson's silent control. When Savannah found out, she drove to the ranch, barefoot, hair undone, screaming through the rain, "You can't take everything from me." Jackson stepped out onto the porch, umbrella steady. "I didn't take anything," he said calmly. "You gave it all away for $5. She collapsed on the gravel, sobbing, mascara bleeding into mud. He turned away, his voice a whisper the storm almost swallowed. $5 for land, 8 years for love. Seems like you overpaid. Lightning cracked behind him as he walked back inside, leaving her crying under the same sky where he once promised forever. Savannah hadn't left her mother's house in 3 days. The blinds were drawn, the news on mute, the world outside a blur of shame. Her mother, Vivian, paced the living room, a glass of whiskey in her hand and fury in her voice. "I told you to marry rich, not stupid," she spat. "You had a man who adored you, who built you a palace, and you sold it for pocket change?" Savannah sat slumped on the couch, face pale, eyes hollow. "I didn't know it would go this far. I thought Dylan." "Dylan?" Vivian snapped. "That man's in custody for tax evasion and money laundering. He sold you lies, and you handed him the deed to your life." On the muted TV screen, the headline scrolled across the bottom. "Real estate mogul Dylan Grant arrested, $3.4 million fraud network uncovered." A photograph flashed. Dylan in handcuffs, jaw bruised, eyes furious. Vivian turned away, muttering, "You've humiliated this family." Savannah whispered, "What family?" The silence after that sentence was sharp enough to bleed. Meanwhile, Jackson stood on the same ranch porch that once echoed her laughter. The land stretched endlessly before him, clean and silent. Elena joined him, handing over a folder. Dylan pleaded guilty. He's turning on her to reduce his sentence. Jackson didn't flinch. "Let him. The truth doesn't hurt when you expect it." Elena hesitated. "You've won, Jackson. But this is turning cruel." He turned his gaze toward the open field. Cruel was what she did to love. Across town, the district attorney's office leaked more footage. Savannah and Dylan at the hotel, whispering about the fake sale and joking about Jackson's blind trust. The internet feasted. Comment sections became execution grounds. Greediest wife in Texas. How do you sell a $2M ranch for $5? Imagine losing everything to a man you thought was weak. The humiliation wasn't just public, it was personal. Her influencer contracts evaporated overnight. Sponsors cut ties. Her followers mocked her downfall, calling her $5 Queen. Vivian received a final notice in the mail foreclosure on her estate. She stormed into Savannah's room. "You dragged me down with you," she screamed. "Do you know who owns this debt?" Savannah blinked. "No." Vivian threw the document at her chest. "Elena Holdings Trust. That's him. Your husband owns this house." Savannah's breath caught. "He wouldn't." "Oh, he would," Vivian hissed. And he did. At that same moment, Jackson sat in his office, watching the rain wash across the glass. He wasn't smiling. Revenge hadn't brought peace, only stillness. A knock came at the door. Cal entered. "She's finished, boss. No money, no name, no friends. What do you want done next?" Jackson's jaw tightened. "Nothing. Let silence finish what pride started." That night, Savannah drove to Dylan's holding facility, desperate for closure. But when she arrived, a guard told her Dylan had already signed a plea deal, one that pinned the majority of the fraud on her. She staggered backward into the rain, her hands shaking, makeup melting. He betrayed me?" The guard nodded. He said you planned it. Savannah laughed through tears, hysterical. He took everything and left me to burn. She collapsed against her car door, whispering, Jackson knew. He knew all along. Back at the ranch, Jackson fed the horses under the night sky. His movements were quiet, deliberate, almost reverent. For the first time in years, he spoke to the wind as if it carried his father's voice. I didn't need to destroy her, Dad, he said softly. I just needed her to see what destruction looks like. Lightning flickered again in the distance, the same kind that once warned him, but now it didn't feel like a warning. It felt like closure knocking at the edge of the horizon. Savannah arrived at the ranch just before dawn, barefoot, soaked from the rain. The luxury car she once flaunted, now dented and filthy. Her mascara had mixed with the storm, her once perfect curls hanging limp. The woman who once filmed beauty tutorials for millions now looked like the ghost of her own betrayal. The gate, now guarded, didn't open automatically like before. She had to plead. Please let me through. He's my husband. The guard hesitated, called on the radio, and a voice answered calmly. Let her in. One last time. Jackson was in the stables, brushing down his horse. His shirt sleeves were rolled, his movements slow, deliberate. The smell of hay and rain mixed in the air, a haunting reminder of everything that used to be pure. When she stepped into the barn, he didn't turn. You shouldn't be here, her voice cracked. I had nowhere else to go. You had everywhere else, he said softly, still not facing her. You just preferred shortcuts. She took a shaky step forward. You planned this, didn't you? He finally looked up, his eyes calm, gray, devastating met hers. From the day I saw the first lie in your smile, her chest rose sharply. You knew? I knew, he said, wiping the horse's bridle. Before you sold it, before you texted him, before you kissed him in my truck the night you said you were meeting clients. Her knees buckled slightly. Then why didn't you stop me? He stared at her, expression unreadable. Because stopping you would have meant saving you, and you didn't deserve saving anymore. Savannah trembled, her words barely a whisper. You set me up. No, Jackson said evenly. You set the fire. I just built the walls to contain it. She sank onto the haystack, sobbing. I lost everything. My home, my mother's house, Dylan, my children. He cut her off sharply. My children? Her lips trembled. They're still yours. No, he said, voice like cold iron. They were the last truth I tested, and you failed that too. She broke, then ugly sobs, shaking shoulders, the sound of a woman mourning a life she threw away. He watched her without pity, only quiet detachment. Do you know why I didn't expose you sooner? He asked finally. She shook her head weakly. Because I wanted you to feel what I once felt, the illusion of control. I wanted you to taste power and lose it sip by sip until your own greed drowned you. Her sobs slowed. You've made your point. You've won, Jackson. Isn't that enough? He tilted his head slightly. Winning implies competition. You were never my rival, Savannah. You were my mistake. The words hit harder than any revenge could. She whispered, Please, I have nowhere left to go. He picked up his hat, brushed past her, and stopped at the doorway. Then start where I did, with nothing. She reached out, grabbing his arm. Do you still love me? He looked down at her hand on his sleeve, the same hand that once wore his ring and signed away his future. I buried that love beside the man I used to be, he said quietly. And I don't dig up graves. He walked out into the fading rain, boots crunching the gravel, leaving her kneeling in the hay, broken, wet, forgotten. Behind him, her cries echoed through the empty barn. You can't just leave me here. But he didn't turn back. Not once. At the gate, Cal waited by the truck. You okay, boss? Jackson nodded slowly. It's almost over. Cal hesitated. Almost? Jackson glanced at the horizon. There's one truth left she hasn't seen yet. As the ranch faded in his rearview mirror, Savannah stood alone, unaware that the final blow wasn't the loss of money, love, or dignity. It was what Jackson still planned to reveal next. The courthouse smelled of rain and tension that morning. Reporters crowded the steps, microphones trembling in their hands, cameras already rolling. The story wasn't over, not yet. Jackson Cole was walking back into the same courtroom where he'd once reclaimed his ranch. Only this time, he wasn't there to defend himself. He was there to finish what betrayal had started. Inside, Savannah sat at the defense table, her hands clasped together, knuckles white. The diamond ring was gone. The confidence was gone. Even the makeup could no longer hide the exhaustion. She looked more like a ghost than a woman. Her lawyer leaned in, whispering, "He's filing a motion to finalize asset ownership and guardianship. Just keep quiet." When Jackson entered, silence spread like wildfire. He wore no arrogance, only composure, the kind that unsettles everyone in the room, because it comes from knowing you've already won. Elena followed beside him, carrying one brown envelope and one black one. Judge Walters looked up. "Mr. Cole, we meet again. I assume this won't take long?" Jackson's voice was calm. "Not long, Your Honor. Just long enough for the truth to finish its job." Savannah lifted her eyes, whispering, "Please, Jackson. Please. No more." He didn't answer her. He simply nodded at Elena. She opened the brown envelope first. "Your Honor, this contains a notarized agreement dated 18 months ago, a prenuptial amendment signed voluntarily by both parties." The judge frowned. "An amendment?" "Yes, ma'am," Elena continued. "It was filed before any of these events began. It states that in the event of infidelity or fraudulent transfer of property, all marital assets revert to the innocent spouse. Additionally, all inheritance, child support, and trust claims are forfeited upon proof of betrayal." Savannah gasped, rising from her chair. "That's impossible. I never signed." Elena cut in, eyes sharp. "You did. At your own birthday party, while intoxicated. Remember those charity documents Jackson asked you to sign for the children's trust? That was the filing." The courtroom murmured. Even Dylan's lawyer, sitting in the back under federal escort, went pale. Jackson's voice was low but clear. "I learned long ago that kindness needs contracts. You taught me that." The judge skimmed the papers, then nodded gravely. "The signatures match. This is binding." Savannah's knees buckled. "You tricked me." Jackson looked at her, his tone steady but not cruel. "No, I protected myself from the day I realized you could destroy me. That's not trickery, Savannah. That's survival." Elena handed over the black envelope next. "And this, Your Honor, is the DNA record for the Cole children." Savannah's eyes widened. "Don't." The judge read the results in silence, then exhaled heavily. "Mr. Cole, I am so sorry." Jackson straightened. "There's nothing to be sorry for, Your Honor. The children are innocent. Their trust will remain untouched. But legally, I asked to remove my name from their birth certificates. They deserve the truth more than they deserve a lie." The judge granted it. The gavel struck once, a sound like the final heartbeat of everything Savannah had ever pretended to be. Outside, the reporters shouted questions. "Mr. Cole, are you satisfied with the outcome?" He paused on the courthouse steps, the wind ruffling his suit. "Satisfied?" he echoed quietly. "No, you don't feel satisfaction after being cut open. You just feel closure." Savannah stumbled out moments later, flashing bulbs freezing her in time, the woman who traded love for greed and lost both. She tried to speak, but her words were drowned by the questions, by the rain, by her own shaking breath. When she looked up, Jackson was already walking away through the storm, hat in hand, his silhouette fading into the distance. He never looked back. He didn't need to, because long before she betrayed him, he had already written the ending, the one where the husband knew, the wife fell, and the lover rotted behind bars. She'd sold his world for $5. He'd bought back her soul for nothing. And as thunder rolled across the Texas sky, the man she once called weak became the only truth left standing.